4, 3, 2, live.
All right. Good evening and welcome. Thank you all for joining us for the Uplift Her Women Rising Together event. My name is LaTalia Bone, serving as the 2021 Programs Lead for the BYP Collin County Black Chamber of Commerce. Good evening. We are so excited to have you all here with us tonight in celebration of Women's History Month. For BYP, it was really important that we created space for our executive team and community to celebrate the women in our lives by hearing their stories as a blueprint and as a platform for bettering our own progress for many years to come. If you have not had a chance already, I would highly suggest you take a look at our BYP YouTube page, as it will continue to spotlight the women in our lives that inspire us. I am sure that their words will inspire you as well. So tonight, we brought together 3 dynamic women already making history in law and technology and entrepreneurship. But before we get started with our panel discussion, I'd like to introduce you to some of the women of BYP that are facilitating this event tonight. We'll have our moderator, Ms. Raven Harding, communications specialist, Victoria Mahi, and membership committee member, Sunny Johnson. We want this to be an interactive, productive, and fun experience, so we highly encourage that you use the chat feature. Victoria Mahi, our communications specialist, will be monitoring the chat for us this evening. But before we dive into this discussion, I'd like to share just a little bit more about our moderator for this event. Raven is currently serving as secretary for BYP. She is a proud Southern Methodist University alumna with degrees in public health, psychology, and is currently serving as a healthcare professional in DFW, specializing in clinical research. Overall, Raven has a heart for service and a passion for helping people. And she too is a woman that we cannot go without acknowledging for her progress as an uplifting example in our community. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to your moderator for this evening, Ms. Raven Harding.
Thank you so much, LaTalia. Good evening, everybody. Thank y'all so much for joining us. I cannot wait to get this conversation started. I am so excited to be your moderator this evening. This discussion, it's going to be broken up into 5 pillars, and that goal is to uplift her story, her leadership, her voice, her confidence, and her impact. And then our other goal is to just provide tangible nuggets of wisdom so that we can leave this event not only inspired, but ready to turn our dreams and our visions into action. So during our event, you should expect each panelist to give real life experience, encouragement, and insight into their personal journey of becoming a boss lady in their own right, in their own way. And as always, from sister to sister to sister, know that this is a safe space and an authentic environment brought to us, for us, by us. And so please get comfortable, make yourself at home with our chat, post your questions, your comments, anything you want. The chat is your home. Interact with us. And without further ado, let's get this started and let's meet our panelists. First up, Coach Leanne. Come onto the floor. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I am Leanne Greer, also known as Coach Lee. I am the owner of Body by Lee and the Body brand, which is my fitness apparel line. I am based in Dallas, Texas, but I serve women all across the globe, bringing super fun, effective workouts, and just helping women redefine themselves and rediscover that confidence that sometimes we miss out on as women. As we pour into everyone else, I just help them pour right on back into themselves. So my brand is all about self-love and just bringing women together to create an environment for growth and just to let our light shine.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Coach Lee. Next up, Dr. Jer. Come on, tell the people about yourself.
Sure. So hopefully you can all hear me okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I'm a PhD data scientist, and I work currently as a consultant in the AI and automation space. And so I am up here talking about tech, obviously, in my journey to where I am. I've work both as an independent consultant and I work full-time for an organization. So I have my own business, plus I work for a business. So I can share a lot of insight about, the journey to do both and how to manage that as well. But I'm excited to share kind of how I got to where I am now. And my background is pretty interesting too. I don't come from academia, and I got my PhD at 30. So it's also exciting to talk about that journey as well. So I'm here to represent, and I'm excited to share my perspective. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, I would like to introduce Judge Tucker, who was elected to the State District Judge in a historic election in May 2012, becoming the first African-American judge to serve in the 170-year history of Collin County. Judge Tucker, can you tell them a little bit more about yourself?
Yes, thank you, Raven. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having all of us. I'm so excited about being a part of this panel with just awesome women. As Raven said, I am a state district court judge of the 199th District Court. Kind of a fun fact, people always wonder where those numbers come from. Why is the 199th court next door to the 429th, the 366, all these different numbers. And so the numbers actually come from the legislature when courts are created. So when my court was created in 1971, the next number up was 199. So the 200th District Court isn't in my county, it's in a different county. But if you ever wanted to know, then now you know. My court is a general jurisdiction court as opposed to a specialized court. So for those of you that are familiar with Dallas County, most of their courts are specialized, like they only hear criminal or they only hear family. In Collin County, we're starting to get some specialized courts, but most of the older courts like mine are general jurisdiction. So I hear civil cases, I hear criminal cases that are felonies, I hear family law, CPS, and then I also started a CPS drug court to try to help parents get their kids back that were suffering from substance abuse issues.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's just give a little round of applause for all this Black girl magic on the line right here. I'm so excited to dive in. So ladies, y'all ready? Okay, so the first thing is her story. So by the time we meet somebody who's already made impactful history in their respectful industry, they're already successful. So we want to dive into your story and your experience and get the tea and the lowdown on how'd you get to where you were today. So I'm going to start with Dr. Durr. So my question for you, Dr. Durr, is can you share with the audience your story of how you accomplished to be where you are today and the challenges that you had to overcome being a woman of color within your industry?
Yeah, so this is actually a topic I love talking about for sure. It was a journey for sure to get to where I am. I work in a very heavily male-dominated industry, like a lot of people in tech. And so it was challenging to even know that this was an opportunity that was even available to me because it wasn't something I found out about at my school. I participated in TRIO like a lot of us do. And, that's how I found out about college and everything like that. My parents were in and out of incarceration for a lot of my childhood. So it was pretty interesting to be where I am right now and try to, I guess, imagine this being an outcome even at all. And so that's one of the things I guess I like telling people too, is you just never know where you're going to end up. And that's, I think, one of the best things that I learned from all of this. My challenges, my mom was in and out of incarceration. My parents were doing a lot of illegal stuff when I was a kid. And so I like to joke that I grew up in a very shameless type of environment, if you've ever seen that show. And so I also took care of my siblings during that time. And I did all these things that you really shouldn't have to do so young. And at the same time, it taught me to be, goal driven and goal oriented and go after what I wanted, which is also a curse and a blessing, because it makes you feel like you have to do all the things all the time and you have to go above and beyond. Like my mom says, you work twice as hard to get half as far, which I think as people of color we're used to. And so that didn't bother me, but it did start to, bother me when I was the only person that looked like me in the class. I felt like I needed to go above and beyond to show that I knew what I was good at. And so it really pushed me to get the PhD. It pushed me to get a job that maybe I didn't necessarily want, but I made a lot of money. So I thought that was the answer. And then I realized that I needed to start a business because of all the education I got, because I didn't want to have to work for somebody else that I didn't think was as smart as I was. So I would say that those were all the things that kind of led me to this point. And then just seeing my parents hustle, I learned that hustle mentality. I just always tell people that I flipped it to a positive. And so whatever you're good at, even if other people think that those aren't valuable skills, you never know what could actually be the thing that makes you who you are. And so don't be scared to put yourself out there and be authentic, because I meet people all the time who have similar backgrounds to me and are doing the same kind of stuff that I am. And it's really refreshing to see other African Americans and Hispanic people, because I'm an Afro-Latina. I love seeing both of us enter the tech space, especially because we're the least likely to be there. But it will kind of push you to do things like start your own business, because you don't see people that look like you at the table too.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Already dropping gems. We're going to come back because I heard some things about networking in there, some self-care and all of that. So we're going to touch on that more later. My next question is for Judge Tucker. So Judge Tucker, can you give an example of a challenge or a bias due to being a woman of color in your industry? And how are you able to maneuver the situation towards a positive outcome?
Like Dr. Durr indicated, the legal profession is heavily dominated by white male. So not just male, but white male. We're starting to see, obviously, more women go to law school. But I can tell you the first judicial conference that I went to, I walk in and there's 600 judges and all I see is a sea of white hair. I called one of the female judges in my county and I said, hey, why didn't you prepare me for this? You know, I'm looking around to see, you know, where are the women, and particularly, are there any women of color in this room? And so I spent my first probably 30 minutes just kind of looking around to see, is there anyone in here that even looks like me? And so it's interesting. When I grew up, I was always the only African-American child in my classes. I went to UT, I went to SMU, so not tons of, students of color there. So I do feel like that kind of prepared me for my journey in entering the legal profession, but still we oftentimes are wondering, where are the people that look like us? And I think that when we're in that position where there are so few, that we do meet obstacles and challenges that others don't, because it's not anything they've ever had to think about, because we haven't been in those spaces. So like my first judges meeting, they were planning what's called bench bar, where there's a weekend of all the lawyers and all the judges. And so they had always played this game of the judges would turn in their baby pictures and the lawyers would guess who the judge was. So I'm sitting in this meeting, my first meeting, and I said, hey, we're going to have to come up with a different game this year, because it's going to be quite obvious who, Judge Tucker is. And so the room got quiet because it was not anything that they ever even thought about. And so it can be something as simple as that, just being in that space and kind of bringing it to their attention that we have to think differently now, because we have to kind of diversify, as well as Dr. Durr indicated, when we're in a professional setting, I feel like as a woman of color, we oftentimes get challenged differently and more. I've asked my female colleagues, hey, do you guys get challenged on the bench this way? And they will say, yes, Angie, but not in the way that you do. So like my bailiff had worked in every court in this courthouse before I hired him as my bailiff. And we were here a few weeks and he finally said, Judge, I've never seen a judge get challenged by lawyers the way that you do, or to tell me they're so surprised at how smart I am, which is a backhanded compliment. And so I think, as Dr. Durr said, as Black women, we always have to be ready to let it roll off our back and maintain professionalism. And as she said, always have the highest standard. So for me, I know that people lower their standards for me. I set high standards and my goal is always to exceed those standards, because I know if I'm meeting my own, then I know I'm just wearing them out, and so that's the way I think that we have to look at it. I look at everything as a challenge and not a negative. How can I address this and still come out on top? without you trying to belittle me or make me feel like I shouldn't be here, because I'm always going to show you that if anybody deserves to be here, it's me. So I think that's the attitude as women of color that we have to come in with.
Thank you so much. That is just wonderful. Representation matters. And so I thank y'all so much for being there, showing up, showing your faces, showing, yes, we are here. We occupy these spaces unapologetically and fabulously. And so I thank you so much for touching on those keys. Coach Lee, you ready for your question? So overall, what advice would you provide, considering your story, that could empower our audience members to approach their own paths towards success?
Okay, I think what's the most important thing that I can give to you guys is to remember that everyone won't be for you, and they're not supposed to be. It's very strategic and specific about who's supposed to have their hand on your blueprint. So focus on the people who are there for you and don't worry about the people who are not. In the fitness and health and wellness industry, it's almost like we live in two different worlds. When compared to some Caucasian fitness influencers, they have different contracts and opportunities and all these things that we get paid for. We're producing excellent content, but there's no monetary gain or anything for us available for us. So what I did is focus on the people who work for me, focus on the brands that do see what value I bring to their company. And I work with those brands. I always say, you never have to ask for a seat at a table that you're supposed to be at. They're going to pull out the chair for you and invite you to it. So just be confident in what you do. And always remember that no one can argue with greatness. If you show up and you're great, then no one can argue with that. So just be great at what you do and everything will fall in line.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Dr. Durr, I just saw you posted something. What do you want to share? What is your quote?
Well, just going along what you were saying, Coach, I always say some people are in your life for a reason and some people are in your life for a season. So know the difference between people that are supposed to be there for a while and some people that are just supposed to come in and out of your life.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Durr has all the things. We're gonna make a t-shirt line after this. Whenever we met before this, you said something else. I'm like, we need to put this on a t-shirt today and we're gonna monetize this. But so ladies, before we move on to our next section, I kind of want to dive in a little bit more with this, your story, your background. So a lot of a commonality between all your three stories is the fact that you are a woman of color, you're a Black woman, and you are in these spaces that are not traditionally, that before you were there, were white spaces, right? White male spaces. So how do you come into these spaces when you have critics and people here trying to undermine you, or try to dim your light a little bit? So what kind of techniques do you have to do to prepare yourself to, you're great, you're great, but these other people that you're taking their space and maybe they're intimidated, maybe they're scared, maybe it's all of the above. What do you do to really put yourself out there and ignore the haters? So I'm going to go to Coach Lee. What do you do?
For me, I don't personally put my energy towards any of that. I literally, in my field of health and wellness, I just let my results speak for themselves. All I do is put it out there. You cannot argue with that. So again, letting greatness just speak for itself. I do work twice as hard. Often I'm going off 3 hours of sleep so I can stay up and study and see how can I be better? How can I get these results faster? And how can I encourage more women and reach more women and change the way that obesity kind of plagues the minority communities? That's my main focus. I focus my energy on that, and every time I just end up coming out on top. But that goes back to what Dr. Durr was saying, just work twice as hard, and Judge Tucker as well, just being great and working harder.
Judge Tucker, what do you have to say about this? I know we have similar backgrounds going to a PWI, going to SMU, and so I know you touched on dealing with some classmates. And Dr. Durr, teaches SMU. And so what do you do when you are in the room as far as like in academia and you're dealing with people who are naysayers in the background?
Right. So my experience, UT and Austin are, very liberal, kind of everything goes. And then I went to SMU for law school, which was very eye-opening. As I said, I'd always been in environments where it was predominantly white, but SMU was just on a completely different level. Our first, like I said, we were the largest law school class that they had. A whopping 13 African-American students showed up, and you would have thought, the sky was falling. And so the students, Caucasian students, weren't happy that we were there. They would say, my friend couldn't get in because you got in. And I'm like, hey, we had to, take the LSAT. We had to have good grades. Everything that was required of you, we had the same requirements. No one less than that. And it was kind of that field that, they just allowed us to be in. Our first week, there were racial slurs, all over the bathrooms, in the law quad. And I'm thinking, these are educated people. So these are people that have already gone to college, some of them, the wealthy of the wealthy, right? And we have racial slurs in the bathroom. So that was eye-opening for me in that space. And then I had shared with Raven that I got to my classroom, and when you're a 1L, in some classes, your seats are assigned. And so I walked in, and there was a white male, and he told me that the only African-American women he had ever been around were his maids, his nannies, obviously to degrade me and make me feel like I didn't belong. So I just looked at him and I said, well, aren't you in for a treat this semester? And I just sat down. And so I was like, you will not intimidate me because I know how hard I've worked to get here. I deserve to be here just as much as you do. And, in the old days before fraud, our grades were posted by Social Security number. I know for you young people, you're going to go, oh my gosh. So you would go outside your professor's door, and there weren't names. It was just Social Security numbers, and you looked for your Social Security number. And so how these kids knew the names, I don't know, but I was so happy when I got to my professor's office and I was at the top, my grade was at the top and his wasn't. Because once again, confirming if anybody deserves to be here, it's the person with the A, not the person with the C. And so I just kind of, smiled at him and went on. And so I think it's just having that self-confidence. And I think that begins when we are younger, that we have to pour into our little girls that look like us, our little brown girls, and let them know that they are special. They are princesses. They're going to be queens when they grow up. And there's nothing that they can't accomplish. So that when they get to these spaces, and things are coming at them, it doesn't deter us. We have to keep going. And I will say that it's been great to have support from other women that look, Caucasian women or African-American women in this space to encourage me. When I got here, I was the first. I call myself the Lone Ranger. I'm still the Lone Ranger, but the African-American judges in Dallas would reach out to me. Hey, Angie, are you okay? Do you need anything? Because they also knew in this space, I have to shine. My crown can never be crooked. My light can never go off. I have got to be on it 24/7. And so they were very supportive, as well as my judges here. So that was really helpful.
Thank you so much. I don't know if y'all can see me, but I was, girl, period. That is awesome. Before we move into our next segment, Dr. Gurr, did you want to have anything else you want to say about that discussion?
I was just going to say, if you can't find a seat at the table, it's never a bad thing to just make your own table. And to the point made earlier, if you have the resourcefulness and you're good at what you do, then your behavior is going to speak for itself. And so don't let you talk for yourself, let your work talk for you, when at all possible, I would say.
Yes. As Coach Lee said, greatness, you can't argue with greatness. You can't argue with facts. I'm here to conquer, to slay, and they're just going to have to deal with it. So moving on to our next topic of conversation, it's all about her confidence. So I know we were kind of digging into that part of being confident as you are walking into these spaces and owning it, making sure your crown does not tilt. having your sister squad. And so I kind of want to do a little digging. So I want to know, whenever I think of confidence, my mom and I joke about this all the time. We say, what is that theme song that plays in your head as you are walking down the street, your own personal catwalk, whatever it is, as you are going into that boardroom, going into that courtroom, whatever you're doing, presenting in front of large crowds of people who don't look like you. So what I want to know from everybody is your personal theme song that gets your confidence going. Coach Lee, tell me what yours is.
Mine would be Girls Run the World by Beyonce with the little shoulder. Girls, we run this. Yeah. That always gets me hyped right before a big moment. So I love that.
Yes. Well, girl, I thought it was going to be body, because I saw it in the back. We're going to put Girl Who Run the World Girls. Dr. Durr, what's your song? What's your go-to song?
I guess I'm the old spirit. Mine is always the Gap Band whenever I'm having a bad day or a good day. So I go with Outstanding by the Gap Band.
I knew you were going to say that. I was like, I bet she's going to say Outstanding. I like that one. And Judge Tucker, what's your song?
I'm probably the oldest on here. Mine is I'm Every Woman.
Whitney Houston or Chaka Khan, the original.
Shaka, old school.
I asked, thank y'all so much for sharing. So for our audience members out there and our panelists, so we curated a little special playlist for this event tonight. So you can find it on our website. But what we're going to do after the event, we'll add our judges' songs up there too. I'm so sorry, our panelist songs up there. And then audience members, if you have your go-to confidence song, please drop that in the comments, because we'll love to just make this as interactive as possible. We're a family, so add that up there, and then you can play that playlist whenever you just need a little pick-me-up, or you just need a reminder that you are it. All right. So my first question, as we're getting into the Her Confidence section, is going to be for, let's see, Judge Tucker. So during your journey, what professional insecurities did you face and how did you overcome it?
That's an interesting question. I was raised by a single mom who, if she lacked from confidence, she never showed me that. And she always just encouraged me to do my best, that second best was never going to be acceptable. And so I wouldn't say that I really felt insecure in the space, because I felt like I always was preparing myself. And I went to the same schools. That's one of the first questions that I think that as Black women, we often get when we walk into that space and they don't know you. They want to ask you what schools you went to, because to them, I think they're trying to once again bring you down. So when they hear I went to the same school they went to, or a better school than they went to, then they have to go to a different question. And so I think preparation is very important as we're on this journey. I think that there are oftentimes people that try to make us feel insecure, which is why I was speaking earlier about making sure that we are teaching our young girls and pouring into them so that they can stand against that when it comes, and we know that it's going to come. And because I've been in spaces where I was the only person of color, it hasn't really bothered me because I'm so used to it, as I'm sure many of you guys are as well. It just becomes second nature. I was at an event with an Asian American lawyer, and she walked up to me and she whispered and she says, does it bother you that we're the only women of color in the room? And so I looked around and I said, to be honest with you, I really hadn't thought about it. And I think we get so accustomed to it. It's just how we roll. And we are comfortable in our own skin. She obviously wasn't, because she came over to me. And so I just told her, I really hadn't even noticed, but, it really doesn't matter. You are who you are. Like Dr. Durr said, you're going to rock in whatever role you're in, whatever room you're in. And so I just think encouragement from other women, perhaps, if you are feeling insecure. If I've had questions, I wouldn't call them insecurities. If I've had questions, like when I said I reached out to the other female judges when I first got here, hey, did the old male lawyers, they come at you this way, or is it just me? Because obviously we're always accused of being emotional, or how Black women are, that sort of thing. So sometimes I'm like, okay, well, let me have an internal check here. I'm like, is it me, or is he talking to me crazy, right? And so when my bailiff, who's a white male, said, Judge, I don't know what's going on. I don't see them talk to other judges that way. I did kind of reach out to my female colleagues here and say, do you guys experience some of that? And they do, from some of the older white male attorneys, but not in the sense that I do. But as I said, I just take it in stride and handle it. But I would think that would be kind of the only example I would have as far as being insecure in my role, because I felt like this was a faith walk and that God put me here. And so because he put me here, I knew this was where I was supposed to be. So nothing really deterred me after that.
Yes, thank you so much. As you were speaking, I just think about, how do you take those risks? How do you walk out on faith and really just fully trust? And like, what are your reminders, or what do you do, whichever panelist wants to come forward, about really taking those risks and being confident in those risks? So Coach Lee or Dr. Durr, anybody want to speak to that?
I'll just say that you definitely want to make sure that you do your due diligence to know who you are before you do anything. So be self-aware and know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are as a leader, but also just as a follower. I think we need to understand how we relate to other people, not just from a leadership perspective, because that's usually the first place we go, but I think we also need to understand how to work with other people and listen to other people and learn from other people, because no matter what role we have, that's an expectation that's going to be held to us. And so I think you also have to take self-care as a priority, and you need to take the time to walk away when you need that time to really work on yourself, because you can't be your best self if you don't feel good. And people know that. People know when you're not aware of how you come off to people, and you're not aware of who you are, and you're not in touch with your emotions enough to know, how you are able to exist in the world. So I would say make that a priority, spend the time, investing in yourself first before you invest in anything else, and make that a constant, focused kind of thing that you do and that you work towards no matter what happens. And I will also say that don't feel like you need to always go above and beyond, because I think sometimes as women especially, we think we have to do everything. Like, Judge, I heard you say you have a cleaning lady. Like, that's amazing. Like, that's the kind of stuff we need to be able to be comfortable doing as women. We don't have to do everything. I have a 7-year-old, and I have to tell myself, like, mommy has to go do stuff because I have to pay her bills. And so you can't feel bad about making sure you make the time for what you need and outsourcing the things that you don't have time for too. Don't be scared to outsource.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Durr. I noticed you were saying, basically, I was always taught you can't pour from an empty cup. So if you are not right within, if you're not doing your self-checks, your reminders, you taking care of yourself, especially as Black women, we typically get the brunt of a lot. We have to deal with the people at the job. You got to go back home, deal with the family. And then they put the label on like the strong Black woman, but we're human, right? And so yes, we're great, fabulous, Black girl magic, but we're also just human. And so we need to make sure we're resting, we're normalizing rest, and that you can still be your boss self. But in order for you to be your best self, it requires some internal maintenance, physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, just making sure you do that maintenance. Coach Lee, hey girl, so I want to know, so basically, a big buzzword recently is, imposter syndrome. We are confident we're getting in these spaces, but sometimes it doesn't click all the way. Like, oh gosh, am I really supposed to be here? But you are internally, right? And so, how do you admire someone else's success without doubting your own self-worth and overcoming imposter syndrome?
I think the big thing here is going to be to draw a solid line between admiration and comparison. If you stay away from comparison, because comparison truly is the thief of joy. And just, I can use my co-panelist here as an example. Like, I'm a fitness trainer. I'm here with Judge Tucker and Dr. Durr. It would be so easy for me to shrink and feel like I don't belong here, but I know that we all were invited here because we all have something different to offer the world. So if you just focus on your own journey, you never know what another woman had to go through to get to where she is today. So you just always want to focus on your own journey and know that like you belong right where you are. Like if you're there, it's because you belong there. Focus on giving your gift to the world and just opening up and letting your light shine, and don't shrink. Don't reduce yourself for anybody. I think there's a quote that says that I'm not breaking myself down into bite-sized pieces anymore. They can choke. Okay, so make sure you just like live and be light and just be the fullness of everything that you were created to be.
Thank you. I love that. Yes, that's something else we're going to put on the t-shirt line at the end of the meeting. So, so thank you, ladies, so much. This has just been so wonderful. We're going to move into our next segment, and that is all about your vision and your impact. So a part of this event tonight was how are we going to make our visions, our plans, our ideas, all of that into action, because we can dream all day. But, you know, we have to, faith without works is dead. So we have to put that work in, we have to do what we have to do. So before the event started, we had our audience members, a lot of them kind of put in the chat, you know, some things, their 2021 vision. And so what did they want to see basically manifest from this Women's History Month to next Women's History Month? So I pulled some of the more common themes that were going on. So I'm just going to ask you guys, just what are your tips? What are your advice on how we can take these visions and really turn them into reality? So the first one is, how do you make a bold career change? Like, can I get a show of hands? Who is in a profession right now on the line who this is not what you thought you were going to be doing and you made a bold decision? Okay, and so, so Coach Lee, can you kind of talk about that? Like, how did you make that bold career change? Who helped support you? How do you prepare and market yourself as you are going through a new business venture?
Okay, so I started as a biology major in college, wanting to go to medical school. I graduated with a degree in biology, and I knew that I wanted to help people, but I wasn't sure how. So while I was figuring out how I can help people, and I decided not to go with traditional medicine because it just didn't align with my beliefs and everything. So I went to work in the insurance industry, and I was an adjuster for about 6 years. Everywhere I went and I worked in DC for a year. I worked in San Antonio for a year. I worked all these different places, and this little fitness situation was just following me. And I'm like, get back. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to do that. I didn't want to do it. I loved working out and I loved helping people. And then I started to pay attention to, what are you doing for free? Often I didn't charge anybody, and I'm completely changing lives. And I did it for free with no problem, no hesitation. There was a particular situation with my coworker who sat next to me. He wanted to become a police officer, but he was like, I'm too fat and I'm too old. And I'm like, no, you're not. Like, let me help you. So I'm throwing food in the trash. I'm like, no, we're running around the building after work, all of this. I left that assignment and was waiting on my next assignment. And he asked me, could we meet up? And I'm like, okay, that's random because I don't typically talk to people after I leave an assignment. But when he came to meet me, he came in his police uniform, and he was like, I'm a police officer. And he was like, I just kept hearing your little voice, like, come on, Papa, you can do it. So that was when I realized that God had a call on my life to do that. I'm like, I literally changed his whole life. So I waited until I was at a point. A lot of younger girls in the health and wellness industry reach out to me like, how did you know when to quit your job and all this? Well, honey, I mean, yes, step out on faith, but also be strategic. I was missing money to be at work. I didn't just say, forget my life and all of my bills and everything and just quit. I was actually missing money. Like, so I tell people, like, wait until you're missing out on something to be there. Like, you can do your 9 to 5 and do what you love as well on the side until it becomes a thing where you can actually step out on it. So I did that. And how I ended up where I am today is just setting small goals. At first, it was just me and my mom. I thank God for my mom. It was just me and my mom at the gym last time. Like, okay, mom, let's do some jumping jacks. Nobody came. So it was just me and my mom, and she was my biggest support in my transition. And I just started to say, okay, if I can get 10 people in class every day this week, if I can, and then it got to a point where I didn't have enough equipment. Like, the other trainers are like, no, she needs to leave. Like, she has too many clients. And now I've, in the last year, I've serviced over 5,000 women in 5 different countries. So it's absolutely phenomenal. Just keep setting those small goals and keep knocking them out the park. And before you know it, you're here with these amazing people speaking.
Yes, I was, as you were talking, I was like, yes, you better walk into your purpose. That is, it's gonna follow you. You to do. So that's awesome. I'm so excited for you and your journey. Another vision that someone else, a lot of people talked about is continuing education. So, before I go there, I wanted to tell you, Coach Lee, as you were talking about how you and your mom were hitting the gym, our community members, our village, our family, they are some of our biggest supporters. How many of y'all on the line have had to go to your family's room and be like, okay, can you call out these flashcards for me, please? Help me study. Can you be a practice, defendant? Can you help me do some tech stuff? Now, Dr. Durr, I'm in the STEM field too. And so a lot of the times it's just a lot of just mutual support, because when I try to throw out equations, my family, they're like, let's try again later. But Dr. Durr, speaking about continuing education, how did you make that vision into a reality? I know you're saying you're a non-traditional student, you got your PhD at 30. So can you talk more about that?
Sure. So I graduated with my PhD at 30. So I was also a very young PhD student, which for those of you that don't know, most people get their PhD way late. And so that was another interesting part of it that I didn't really know, because I just thought you like go to school and you finish. I didn't really have anyone to compare it against. So I was there with a lot of older people too. So it was cool in some ways because I go along with older people, but at the same time, it was definitely harder to feel. That was just one more way that I felt like I didn't belong in the space. So for me, it was just not being scared to work hard, and then also going across knowing yourself. During my time in education, it was so valuable that I went to higher ed, because I would have never gotten all these learning disabilities diagnosed that I had, because growing up, as a poor kid of color, you don't really get the same experiences. And usually if you have problems in school, people just assume you're bad. And so when I had issues growing up, people just assumed I was stupid or I was just bad. And so I compensated a lot. And at a certain point, I hit a wall. And so, don't think that because you have whatever circumstances going on around you. I mean, I was going through a divorce. You couldn't, there were so many bad things going on at the time that you couldn't have asked for more things to go wrong. I lost my job. There were so many different just things going on in my life, but I just kept that in my frame of reference as my goal. And throughout it all, I just kept that focus and that drive on that one vision of me walking across that stage. And you have to go in with a vision, like a actual physical vision in your mind. You have to see yourself accomplishing that, getting that degree or doing whatever it is. Make that a priority. And if it means not enjoying yourself, just continually remind yourself about that goal at the end of it. And it doesn't matter how long it takes you. Don't be scared to go after it. But at the same time, don't think that education is the answer to all your problems, because it is not. And if you're a poor kid that comes from nothing like me, I learned the hard way that education can also be a hindrance, because I have 6 figures of student loan debt. And that's with scholarships paying for my school and everything, because I didn't have anybody to buy me a car. I didn't have anybody to buy me a place, get me a place to live when I needed it. I was making minimum wage. I was working 3 jobs making minimum wage. So, when people tell you go work hard and save, I did all that stuff. And it didn't make a difference, because, nobody in my family has generations of wealth passed down, unfortunately. So it just didn't work out like that. And so I think sometimes we envision that education is the answer, but if you don't have a goal from all of that in mind, it's not going to solve anything. So don't just go to education because you think that's the solution to everything, because unless you really know that that's going to make or break you as a professional, don't stress yourself out. Don't feel like education is a differentiator for knowledge. It just shows that you know how to work with the system and, you know, take advantage of that system and get to an endpoint. That's all it shows. You can do that in a variety of different ways. And there's so much information readily accessible in the world. Don't feel like you need someone to verify that you know what you know. You know, again, let your work speak for itself. Work on projects, showcase those projects. Don't feel like you have to show a certificate if you have something tangible to show people about what you know.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you. And Judge Tucker, another one of our audience members, what they want to talk about is basically how do you thrive and not just survive? How do you, their vision is thriving and growing in all their areas of life and balance that being a successful Black woman. So what do you do for balance? How are you thriving right now? And how do we turn that to a reality?
For me, my center is always God. So in the mornings when I wake up, before I ever get out of bed, I thank God for letting me see another day. And then I commit my day to Him. And so for me, what that does is, because I think as women, particularly women in our position, as we talked about, we feel like sometimes we have the weight of the world on us. You know, we have so many things we have to do for family and work and career and growing businesses, all those things. So when I can tell Him that I'm turning it over to Him, that means He's in control and I don't have to be. And so I start my day that way. Before I take the bench, the same thing. I ask Him to give me discernment. I ask Him to give me the guidance. Let me see what I need to see, not just what they want me to see. Help me to make the best decisions, all those things as I journey. So that's that's my base level. That's ground level, ground zero for me when I start my day. And that helps me. If I, wake up, quickly and I forget that, about noon, it hits me, I didn't start my day right. Because it's like, boy, nothing has gone right this entire day because I didn't start it off right. And so those are things that just kind of help me as I go along. And I really think, and I think Dr. Durr and as well as Coach Lee have touched on these things about being aware of our bodies and when to rest and all those things that we need to refuel, because that's when I feel I'm at my best. We all can just wear ourselves down, particularly when you're in a high stress. My job is extremely high stress, right? Because I have to decide on whether somebody goes to prison, somebody goes on probation. I have to decide, does this child go home with their parents or do they go to foster care? All those different things. I hear death penalty cases, so my day-to-day, my 9 to 5, I tell my mom when I get home and she wants to talk about something, I'm like, hey, I can't do any drama past 5 because my 9 to 5, I hear everything, right? I cannot. And so I think it's so important what they said about self-care and taking a step back sometimes just to relax and not feel guilty. Because I think sometimes when we do, I don't know if it's all women. I know moms have that guilt, but I think too, like Coach Lee is talking about, even when I had my own practice, you are never off work when you are an entrepreneur. You are working all the time. And so I think it's very profound and key as to what they were talking about, as to take care of self. I can say those are some things I've neglected. And my body, I paid for it with my body. I was on the bench in a trial and could not stop coughing. And I was like, boy, this is really annoying. So I leave, I go to the doctor in the middle of this trial, take a recess, run to the doctor. She says, you have pneumonia and you're like 1 day away from the hospital. And I'm like, but you don't understand. I'm in the middle of this trial. So she tells me to go home. I come back to work, finish the trial, go home. And the next morning, cannot get my head off the pillow, sick as a dog. And so I think that is what we do sometimes when we're trying to reach these different levels and be accomplished. And as Dr. Durr talked about, stay on top. We ignore all those signs that our body is telling us. So I think in order to thrive, it really is mind, body, and soul. And so I start with the spiritual, but also you need to factor in your mental health and just taking care of yourself. So I think the panel was awesome when Coach Lee was talking about, not really being here. She's exactly where she's supposed to be, because I believe as African-American women, we neglect ourselves to the nth degree, and we die from heart disease and all these things because of the stress and all those things. We don't take time to really invest in our bodies, ourself, our health. And Dr. Durr has knocked it out of the park talking about self help, taking care of ourselves, loving on ourselves. So I think that's the way we thrive, and no matter what profession we're in.
Thank you so much for saying that, because I'm hard-headed and I know I needed to hear that personally, because burnout is real. And, again, what use are you to somebody else if you're not even there for yourself? And so definitely keep showing up for yourself, taking care of yourself. So on the topic of self-care, what do y'all like to do for fun? What do you do to de-stress? Dr. Durr, what do you do for fun?
For me personally, I like to journal. I like to read. I like to go take dance classes. I like to go try new restaurants. I'm a foodie, so I'm always trying some new kind of dish. I also make time every day for a little bit of physical activity. So I would say that's one of the things I like to do for sure to de-stress. I think one of the best things you can do for de-stressing, and it doesn't sound as fun as you would think, but just go take a walk and, take in, the city or the town that you live in. And you'd be surprised sometimes how that really has an impact on the rest of your day and what you're doing. So I think we all have to have some things that are fun that we do that aren't for money. So for me, that's dancing. But, make sure you take care of yourself going along those same lines and have some outlets. Don't feel like it has to always be the hustle 24/7. We've kind of reiterated that, but, it's really important. I don't think enough of us realize that we don't have to be the super amazing person that does all the things and has no actual hobbies whatsoever. Like, what is your hobby? The thing you do that doesn't involve money, that doesn't involve drive, that doesn't involve your education. Like, have a hobby, a real one, for sure.
Yes, Coach Lee, what do you do for fun? What is your de-stress?
Okay, Dr. Durr, call me out, why don't you? Okay, so just my favorite thing to do on the weekend, like I love like the fanciest dresses. My friends are like, you are the only person that buys like super fancy occasion dresses for no reason. I'm gonna get dressed up so fancy. Let's go to the fanciest restaurant and let's have a good time. Like, I love going to new restaurants, all the nice restaurants. That's my thing. And it's quite frankly the only thing I have time for. So I've learned from the panel today that I need to get a little bit more balance. I'm currently burning the candle at both ends with my business, but it is also very, very rewarding when I can get a moment to just sit down and go to my support group. All of my clients come together in a support group, and it is just like all the positive vibes, and I get to just go comment to all of them, and it's so therapeutic for me to just reinforce that confidence in them. Like, I only can do it when I have spare time to go talk to each and every one of them. Somebody who's discouraged, like, to just pour into them. Like, my entire brand is about just uplifting women, empowering women, all of that. So going into that community is very therapeutic for me, just because I make sure I keep my cup full. So I go and pour into theirs when I have spare time, and dressing up, doing fancy stuff. Other than that, workouts. That's all.
Girl, we will have so much fun, because let me tell you, I like to get dressed up to go nowhere. I have had a history of doing photo shoots right back there. Nowhere to go, but just for the fun of it, just to feel good. And Judge Tucker, what is your favorite thing to do for your self-care?
I would say reading for fun, and I'm stressing for fun, particularly when I was in private practice. I would be in bed with, my code books or case file right before I went to sleep. And when I got on the bench, we go to these conferences, and they were talking about this secondary trauma because of all of the things that we see and hear all day. And I was like, you know what? I really don't do the touchy feely. I was like, this session is not for me. You know, I'm sitting there with my colleagues and I'm like, I'm just really uncomfortable even having these conversations because this is not me, because I really didn't think it was affecting me, right? Because as we're Wonder Woman, I'm like, nothing affects me. I can hear this stuff all day. And so I started having these issues with my stomach. And I'm like, I've never had stomach issues. So I go to the doctor and she was like, it's stress. She was like, you're internalizing it from everything you're hearing. And I went, oh, okay, well, maybe I should have paid attention to that whole secondary trauma thing. But she said, do you read? And I said, I love reading. I've always loved reading. But she goes, when's the last time that you just read for fun? And I had to pause because I was always working, you know. And she said, the fact that you read work right before you go to sleep means your brain never turns off. So she goes, you're not resting well. And so you get up the next day and you do the same thing. So I'm speaking to someone, if this is you, then turn that work off, find something that you just read for fun and immerse yourself in that so you can just kind of relax and take your mind off of your day-to-day. So that's what I do.
Yes, I don't know if you saw, me and Dr. We raising our hands, the same thing. I get tummy aches because of the stress. I'm like, what is going on? And absolutely, it's manifesting physically what's going on around. So thank y'all for these tips. So we're going to do some journaling. We're going to read. We're going to go out for nice foodie restaurants with Dr. Dura, and then go to the gym with Coach Lee afterwards so we can look great in these dressed up dresses we're going to put on and take pictures and stuff. That's what we're going to do for self-care. So ladies, thank y'all so much. Before we close out and do the formal closeout, I just want to give y'all the floor of just how we can go one by one, how the audience can get connected with you, and if you have any upcoming events or any upcoming business ventures, anything like that you want to share. So we'll go ahead and start with Coach Lee.
I'm touching. Okay, it was such a pleasure to be here with you ladies this evening. You guys have been absolutely wonderful. I love everything that the event stood for. What I have coming up, well, my April challenge opens every month. Towards the end of the prior month, we open up for new enrollment. You can sign up to be a part of the challenge. You can do these workouts at home. Your kids can hop in with you. Your husband can try to hop in with you. Nobody's husband has made it through a whole workout yet, but they can try. So you can sign up for my April challenge at www.bodyxlee.com. Coming up in the next few weeks, I also have a book coming out called Transform Her. It is about the mental aspect of embarking upon a fitness journey. It just helps you get mentally prepared because we underestimate that aspect and just decide that we're going to be fit on Monday, on the Sunday night before, and it doesn't work like that. So it just tackles the mental preparation of doing that. It's absolutely been a pleasure to be here with you guys. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. And we'll make sure we'll give the audience all your information so they can go and look. Judge Tucker, is there anything you want to share?
Actually, Team Tucker can rest a little bit. So I was blessed to run unopposed this year. I'm always up on the presidential cycle. So there's a governor cycle and there's a presidential cycle. My term is a 4-year term. I'm always up when the president is up. So you guys have 3 years to rest before I start calling you saying, okay, it's time for Team Tucker to get ready to walk and hold signs and all those things. But as far as my day-to-day, if you all have interest in the law or you have children that maybe want to intern in the summer or come up and watch, I have kids that come shadow me. I have adults that want to shadow or see what's going on. It's really important that we learn what's going on in these spaces. So anytime you want to come up, I have a family week or a criminal week. You can come up, or kids in the summertime when they don't have school, they can watch trials and that sort of thing. Or, just to kind of learn about the process, because we see it on the back end on TV. I think it's really important that we learn how this really works in the courtroom and how we can be more engaged, particularly if you get a jury summons. Please, Black and brown people, please don't try to get out of jury duty. I am sometimes blown away if I have 3 Black people on a panel of 100 people. And then a lot of times they don't want to serve. And we need you in those spaces. We need you on grand juries. So please, please, please consider doing that if you get the summons. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Dr. Durr, anything you want to share?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me, of course, too. And it was a pleasure to share the space with these amazing ladies. And thank you again. So I want to share that my organization, Data Ready, is always looking for volunteers and interns. If you're looking to work with a nonprofit that's focused on utilizing data and related technology for the purpose of innovating at scale in the community space specifically, that would be us. We're a digital nonprofit, so reach out. All of our opportunities are done digitally, so that's really unique too. And then if you are looking for any consulting in the AI and automation space, hit me up there too. That's my full-time paid for someone else gig. So if you need any consulting help, or if you even need, if you have questions about entering the data or AI or related tech spaces for yourself or other people, you can also reach out to us about that too. Connect with me on LinkedIn. That's the best way, the fastest way to get in contact with me about anything professional. And then feel free to share my email for anybody that wants to reach out to me that way. And I'm happy to answer any questions, but it was a pleasure. And oh, I also just found out today that I was nominated for 2021 Dallas Business Journal Woman in Technology of the Year. So hopefully I get that. But yeah, Dallas Business Journal. So that's exciting too.
Yes. Congratulations. Just honestly, congratulations to all 3 of you and just the wonderful things y'all have been doing and will continue to do. I'm so excited to see what the future has in store for you. And just thank you for just taking the time out of your night just to pour into us. Like, I know I'm here blown away. So I know all the people who are at home watching right now have just really walked away with what they came here for, and probably even more than what they were anticipating. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to go ahead and call on our membership team. So before we wrap up, we just have a little highlight from our membership team. So if Sunny is on the line, do you mind joining us?
Hello, I am here. No, I do not mind. First, I would like to say thank you all so much for tuning in. We definitely appreciate your support. My name is Sandrea Johnson. I go by Sunny. I am a member of our membership committee here for BYP. And I just wanted to share some of the benefits of being a member of BYP. We assist with mock interviews, resume building, mentoring, vendor networking, and so many more things that we actually have coming soon. Some of the things that we did in 2020 was to partner with the NAACP to donate school supplies to all the DFW schools in the area. We actually sponsored a Juneteenth scholarship for our graduating seniors in the DFW area. And we have a lot of more things that we're gonna be doing this month and the months coming soon. Please stop by and follow us on all social media platforms. Our Twitter account is Collin County BYP. Our Facebook account is also Collin County BYP. Our Instagram account is Collin County BYP, and our LinkedIn account is also Collin County BYP. Our YouTube channel is BYP Collin County. And if you have any questions or if you would like to keep in touch with us, know about any upcoming events, please stop by and check out our website. Also join the newsletter there to stay in tune with us and to know what's going on and to kind of stay in the know. Our website is bypcollincounty.org. Again, that is bypcollincounty.org. And if you have any questions, suggestions, or comments, you can always email us at excuseme@bypcollincounty.org. I do want to share that we have a financial literacy event coming up in April. And if you're interested in membership, you can check out our membership page at bypcollincounty.org/membership. Again, my name is Sandrea Johnson, and I am a member of our membership committee. Thank you guys so much for tuning in with us. We appreciate your support.
Better plug it, girl. That was one. Okay, thank you, Sunny, so much. You plugged that really, really well. I don't know if I had some tech difficulties right there, but just again, thank y'all so much for your time tonight. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our audience members and our supporters and our family. Please join us again for our next event. And with this discussion, we really hope that it provided you with some tools to use for your own professional and personal journeys. As women, especially women of color, the obstacles can be seemingly overwhelming, but with guidance from those who have achieved and rise to the occasion, there's no reason that every single woman on this call this evening cannot lift up another woman. So we thank you for that. And we can keep lifting each other up. We stand on the shoulders of others and we are our sister's keeper. And I love to close out with a quote from Dr. Maya Angelou. And it says, if I could give you one thought, it would be to lift someone up. Lift up a stranger, lift her up. I would ask your mother and your father and brother and sister, lovers, mother and daughter, father and son, lift someone. The very idea of lifting someone up will lift you as well. Thank you guys so much for your time tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll be reaching out to all of our audience members soon with some more details and a recap of tonight's event. Thank y'all and enjoy the rest of your night. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Y'all are fabulous, fabulous. Good night.
Good night.